Hi, and thanks for joining the SJ Child Show. The SJ Child Show brings value to families through education and resources. But the SJ Child Show isn't just about me, it's about us as a community. Join me as we help educate and support our community, help bring kindness and love and inclusion to all. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and watch. I really appreciate all the support from all of the viewers and listeners, and I just want to let you know I want you to join me on this journey. Come and follow my social media, and let's do this together. Enjoy the show. Introducing Autism Vehicle Home Safety Kits, Emergency Responder, alert stickers, personal profiles with autism needs and a communication board, masks and earplugs, keeping families and emergency responders educated and safe. Get yours today at sjchilds.org. Helping autism families impact their child's developmental milestones through home relocation, community resources, and home designs. For every 3 homes Natalie Castro sells, she funds and designs a sensory room for a community center servicing individuals with autism. She volunteers to coach law enforcement, first responders, and ER nurses how to have a positive experience for individuals on the
welcome
autism.
to the SG Child Show. I'm your host, SG Childs, and today I have Olivia Hops. And Olivia is coming from, I'm pretty sure it's sunny San Diego, and warm and friendly. And so we're so happy to have her here today. Thank you so much for being here, Olivia.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be on.
Yeah, excited to have you and to really dive deep. I think female divergent minds are kind of hot topic right now. And like we really want to dive deeper. We want to understand more, and we want to be able to understand how to support more females in the community. So yes, tell us about yourself. Give us an introduction and how this all got started for you.
Yes, so I'm, like you said, I'm from San Diego, and yes, it is sunny. I believe it's like 85 degrees today, which is a little too hot for me personally. I like the cold, but my dad and probably 99% of the San Diego population is very excited about this fact. I'm 26 years old, and I was diagnosed with autism in January 2020 at 24 years old. So it's been a little over 2 years, and it's just been the best 2 years of my life, because my whole life I have wondered why I am the way I am, like why my brain works the way it does, because I seem to do things a little differently than other people around me. And I would always say my brain doesn't work right. Like there's this not working quite right. And I believe it was 2008, like the summer of 2018, I was up in Washington State to see my best friend graduate college. And at the dinner afterwards, I was sitting across from her aunt, and I was, of course, babbling on about like my whole life story, because I have like no filters or like boundaries or anything like that. So I'm just like saying intimate details that like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be saying, but that doesn't cross my mind. Book. And I could tell she was like very intensely listening. And after I was done babbling, and I can never tell a short story, so as you can already tell, I have to say all the details.
We already did. I already did that to you about 15 minutes worth.
No short stories here. I just want to make sure everybody has all the details. But so anyway, so she asked when I was done, she's like, can I ask you a question? And I got kind of nervous, because I was like, oh my gosh, did I say something that offended her or something? And she said, don't get offended, but have you ever been tested for autism? And I wasn't offended at all, because nothing really offends me. And I was actually really intrigued, because nobody had ever brought that up to me. And to be honest, I didn't even really know what autism was. At the time, interestingly enough, I was employing a young autistic man at my small business. And that's really all I knew about autism, and I was nothing like him.
Sure.
And so her bringing that up really intrigued me. And she said, my daughter, who's 5 years younger, I think she was like 17 at the time, she said she had just been diagnosed with autism and you sound a lot like her. And so I was like so eager to get back to the hotel room afterwards and like Google autism in girls. And it was like reading a checklist of myself. It was the coolest feeling because I had been diagnosed with, depression, anxiety, PTSD, different things, yes, throughout my life. And it's like they fit in a way, but it's like there's more to it. And I always thought that it's like, okay, I would get this diagnosis and I'd think, okay, I finally figured it out. But then I was like, no, that's not everything.
Yeah.
And so just reading about the autism in girls, it was just like, this is it. And yeah, it was so amazing. And it unfortunately took a year and a half after that to get diagnosed, because when I got back home, I was living in LA at the time. I went to see my therapist that I went to weekly a couple days later, and I was so excited and nervous to bring it up to her. And when I finally got the courage, there was like only 5 minutes left, I think, in the hour session, because I was so nervous trying to get the guts to bring it up. She immediately shot me down and said, like, no, there's no way that you're autistic. And just very unfortunately, something that happens a lot of times to females, specifically in adults, because we can mask our traits so well. And so I was like so mortified. I told my boyfriend, my fiance now, that when I got home, I was like, I have to find a new therapist. I cannot go back. I cannot show my face there again.
Well, and she didn't have all the knowledge. She didn't have what you needed. So that's okay. And I love that you said that, because so many people are afraid to change therapists, to change doctors, to find, to do it more than once. They're like, probably the same thing. Don't want to get shot down again. Don't want to be misunderstood. But there are answers out there.
Yes, absolutely. Because it was just like, I had gotten my hopes up and then she shot it down. And it's like, if I had had more knowledge, I think I could have like pushed her on it a little bit. But I didn't at the time, because I had like literally just found out about it a couple of days ago. And it's funny, the doctor who ended up diagnosing me literally had his office in the same building that she had her office. It was such a coincidence. And yeah, so my advice to people is like, if you get shot down at first, I know it kind of stings, but don't give up, because so many professionals are not properly educated on it. And it's not like it's even necessarily their fault. So it's not like they're trying to like do it on purpose or anything, but don't give up, because it's unfortunately hard to find somebody that understands. But like you said, there are people out there who will understand. It just might take some trial and error to find them.
And, maybe a good thought of advice that jumped in my mind was, if you maybe start to consider that you'd like to get, an autism diagnosis as an adult female, maybe go to Facebook and find a support group that has other females that you can maybe find ideas, or even ask for recommendations. Is there a good doctor in the area that you know of? Those are wonderful ways to reach out to the community to get resources that are real and that have validity.
Yes, absolutely. Fantastic idea. And then, like I'd say too, if you're trying to go for autism diagnosis, like write a bunch of like notes down, like, I mean, for lack of a better word, like proof a little bit.
Yes, I think I have 2.5 pages written.
There you go. Just keep it going.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, they're not the expert on you. You're the expert on you. Exactly. And they only know what you're telling them and what you're showing them. And like, to my therapist's defense, like I'd only been seeing her, I think, about a month.
Oh yeah.
So she was really new. So she didn't know me as well. And it's funny because the week after I got diagnosed, it was so weird. The week after I got diagnosed, because I still went to see her because she was really helping me. And I kind of just like forgot about that. I didn't forget, but I just tried to put it in the back of my mind, like, okay, that was not correct. It wasn't until my mom ended up telling me on my 24th birthday, which is December 31st, that something got brought up about autism, and I didn't realize she had been like thinking about it and like doing research of her own. And I said, do you think I'm autistic? And without even like a second of like pondering or anything, she said, oh, 100%, I think you're autistic. And that's what really gave me the push to like, okay, I'm going to try to find a doctor then. But anyway, so after I was diagnosed and I went to her, I wasn't going to tell her like right off the bat, because not that I was like afraid or anything. I was just like, I don't like feel like getting into an argument potentially.
Yeah.
And we come into the meeting and she's like, I've been really thinking hard, and I think you're autistic.
Oh,
she completely changed her mind.
She did her own research, which is, that's so heartwarming.
Yeah. And it had been, you know, a year and a half since I first brought it up to her. And so she knew me a lot more better, you know, and everything. And so, yeah, she finally was like, you know, I think you actually are. And then I told her, I was like, oh, actually, I got diagnosed last week.
Your neighbor.
Yeah, right down the way, over here in the hallway.
Funny.
And yeah, it was good. And it was like soon after that, I think I went to her a couple more times, and then COVID happened. And so I had to stop seeing her. But yeah, that's how my diagnosis came about.
Interesting. You know, tell us about let's go back to your childhood. Tell us about your childhood and maybe some things that made you feel and recognize that you might have been different than some of your peers.
Yes.
Or siblings. Do you have siblings? That's a good way to measure too.
Yeah. So I have a younger sister. She's 2 years younger than me, and we're polar opposites in about every way. I was definitely not like her in the sense of she's very, very social. Like she was like never home as a kid. She was with friends at dance class, like just always socializing.
Yeah.
And I needed alone time. Like I liked to be alone. But so like I think the biggest thing going back to like my school friends and everything is how much I actually did dislike social interactions, like sleepovers. Oh, those were a nightmare situation for me. And it's like everybody seems to love these things, but I don't. Like going to even birthday parties were very overwhelming. And I don't think like I really knew it at the time, like, oh, this is like really weird, but I just knew it's like I don't
seem to be as excited as these other kids.
Yes, exactly. You know, and like I'd have sleepovers, and I would never want to go to another person's house because I was very like shy, and like I really wanted my mom all the time. And so I'd have, you know, I had a few close friends that would come over to my house to have a sleepover, and I was always I still am an early riser, and I would sneak out of the top bunk of my bunk bed when I woke up in the morning, and would sneak into my parents' room because I could not take being with my friend for like another second. Like I couldn't handle it. So I needed to be alone. Gosh,
I can't wait for my daughter to listen to this. She is going to feel so seen and so good. As a person, like she's going to feel so understood.
Oh, good.
It's exactly her. And she's 10, like I was telling you.
Yeah.
She is just absolutely beautiful, as I'm sure you were too. And so it's like this, everybody wants to be around her. They want to be a part, and she does have, you know, a couple friends that she'll spend time with, but exactly the same thing. If it goes 1 second past the kind of hour or timing that she is over it, she is like done. And then she's like, I'm not going to play for my life. You know, she's like, I'll never play again. I kind of think I'm like, okay.
Yes,
wait till tomorrow. And then at 3 p.m. you'll want to play again.
but no, that's totally me.
Yeah. And we recognize.
I would ask like my friend, like, so like, when is your mom coming to pick you up? Because I need you to leave right now.
Yeah. I'm trying to teach her some kind of maybe like strategies or like words or sentences to get her out of things a little quicker.
Yes.
But I completely see that. Yeah. And it
Yeah.
takes a lot of time after those things. We really notice that she needs to unmask. She needs to slow down, be by herself, have her own time. Yes, exactly. Recharge from all of that. It's interesting.
Yeah. And it's like, I didn't know at the time, like why am I just like done? It's like, I couldn't like even fake it anymore. I'm sure your daughter's the same. Like I was just done. And I'm actually like getting ready to film a YouTube video after this, and it's coping strategies, like to try to help you. And one of my tips that I'm going to talk about is saying no. Because I never could say no, and I was too polite. And so just like teaching your kids or something to like be able to say no, and not view it as being rude, but viewing it as like putting yourself first.
Self-care.
Self-care. Yeah, exactly. Just to be able to say no. I'm too exhausted, whatever. And it's like, again, when I got the diagnosis, it was, so amazing in so many ways, but I felt like, because I always felt like I had to lie to people why I didn't want to go out, why I didn't want to do this. And I'd have to make up lies. Oh, I'm busy, I'm sick, or whatever it may have been. And it's like, one, I was so frustrated because I didn't know why I didn't want to go out. And then two, it's like, now I have to make up this lie. And when I was diagnosed with autism, it's like, I kind of felt like I had my excuse, like for lack of a better word.
Here's
but it was
card.
like, like it's like I could actually tell them something that they would like understand. Like, hey, like if they knew I was autistic, like I'm kind of feeling burned out or whatever, and they would understand. Whereas before, I didn't know how to tell them that I just like, I'm really just don't want to go out. It's like, that seems rude. And like, I would never have wanted to tell them that. But now that I have this answer, I've been able to say no and, be like, hey, I need a rain check. I'm just not feeling it today, or whatever it may be. So definitely, teach your kids or yourself, if you're on the spectrum, to be able to say no. And again, you're not being rude. You're just, like you said, it's self-care and putting yourself first.
Yeah. And, teaching your kids to have that kind of self-confidence opens them up for being able to stand up for themselves in really tough times coming into, school and middle school and things like that. Because we recognize that right away. Like we have a 22-year-old, and we totally know, that she is also on the spectrum, but it doesn't fall far from any tree in this house, I'll tell you. And she now, I'm her stepmom. I spent literally like 9 years going to therapy with her.
Wow.
3 times a week, 4 times a week. I spent more hours in therapy with her. And nobody ever had any kind of diagnosis, any kind of anything. And now obviously we see why. It's because they didn't know what autism looked like in females, and they didn't know what all of these other symptoms that were coming up, the lying, the sneaky feeling like she couldn't be herself because she didn't understand who that was and why it was different than what she was presenting.
Yeah.
And now we see, and she's more or less like also brought us the same thing, kind of, do you guys think I might be autistic? And this is after her brother and her dad's been diagnosed and everybody. And so everybody was like, of course, right? Same as your mom. Of course you are.
You absolutely are.
Yeah, totally. And when our 10-year-old was diagnosed, my husband and I were like, do we have a party? Do we make an autism cake and like really celebrate this?
I love it.
It makes everybody just like get, what am I trying to say? They all understand each other. They all have compassion for one another in a whole nother way than they did before. differently than this story, your story, and ours. My husband, he was not diagnosed, like I said, till he was in
Mhm.
his 30s
Uh-huh.
and 39, I think. And he was grew up in the juvenile detention system. He was
Okay.
punished for his autism
Mhm.
behaviors when he was a child. And that is also a serious, serious thing that
Yeah.
hopefully more information and more uncovering, the
Mhm.
patterns of behavior and things will really help uncover and help those kids that are in those situations be
Yeah.
discovered
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
really, get an understanding so that they can help them get their lives,
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
different order. But if the people that knew him then, they would never in a million years be like, he is in a happy, successful, almost 2 decade long marriage. He has 3 happy, successful kids, like that
That's
wouldn't have
amazing.
never been the story that they would have told him or that he
Wow,
would have
that's
believed,
amazing.
right?
Yeah.
But it was exactly through that. It's in opening your eyes up to um the truth about not only yourself but your friends or your partners, and just having like acceptance
Mhm.
for the differences that we all have together. I think
Yeah.
it's so important, and that's why I started writing children's books, was to improve children's lives with inclusion, because
Yeah.
the world is made up of diversity. Yet
Mhm.
why is there a stigma? Like, why
Right.
do we look at it and say it's bad or it's not a,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's like that's
Yeah.
what makes us a community, is all of the differences we offer.
Yes, absolutely. And like just going back to me saying like I would always say my brain doesn't work right. Like you're saying, like it's just differences. It's not that it's bad or
Yeah.
wrong. And I told the doctor who diagnosed me that, and he said, no, no, it's not that your brain doesn't not work right. It's just that it works differently, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
It is okay. I'm so glad that he said that to you,
Yeah,
and for you to just have embraced it fully
yeah.
and helping you. What kind of now that you have this, what kind of work accommodations do you look for or have for yourself?
So yes, so I had to start my own business because I couldn't handle having a regular job. It's not that I couldn't do the work, and this was so incredibly frustrating because it was, like 5 or 6 years before I was diagnosed, and I just couldn't understand why I couldn't have a normal job because I knew I was smart and
Yeah.
capable, but I just couldn't handle it. And I just couldn't understand why. And obviously now I do. And so I had to start my own business because I just couldn't handle punching a clock and having a boss and being social and going into work and into an office. So I
Yeah.
had to start my own business. And even with that, like some accommodations that I have to make for myself is um, giving myself breaks. So
Yeah.
I actually completely closed down in the summer, and basically I have like summer vacation for 3 months.
I love
And
that.
yes, and I also close like after Christmas to like the end of January. And it's like, one, I do it because the January time is a slow time, and the summertime it's slower too. And
What kind of
the business
business
that I
do
have.
you do you do? Yeah, tell us that.
Yes, I have an edible cookie dough business.
Okay.
So I ship, yeah, nationwide edible cookie dough, and I've been doing it for almost 7 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and the
Yum,
dough melts when it's
too.
hot. And
Yes.
so instead of like, I mean, I tried to ship with like cold packs and stuff, and it was just as expensive and a pain. And there wasn't enough business in those months, anyways. And so I just decided I was going to close. And it was so amazing because if I didn't do that, there's no way I would like make it through the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And just it's so important for me to have those breaks to keep me from going into burnout,
Yes.
so that I can keep functioning the rest of the year. So those are, yeah, some of the accommodations that I have had to make for myself. And
Yeah.
it's been great. Because if I didn't do that, I don't know where I would be, but not here, not being successful.
Yeah. And, I think that I find that most, autistic adults are entrepreneurial spirits. They just
Yes.
have this, like, I
Mhm.
need to go do it on my time.
Yes.
I've had so many careers. I've been a paralegal, which is a 9 to 5, but it
Uh-huh.
also, it gave me the access to really use my brain
Yeah.
and,
Uh-huh.
put my good secretarial skills to work and things like that. But I always struggled with the same thing with, social interactions
Mhm.
with the older generation that was in that same office. It
Yes.
was just a total black and white dynamic. There was no gray area to be seen.
Yes.
And then I became a massage therapist, which was so great because it was again on my own schedule and I was able
Uh-huh.
um to touch people when I wanted. How isn't that interesting? And I
Yes.
am a very like empathetic. I have, a lot of compassion and I like to be a healer and things like that.
Uh-huh.
And so for me, it was really fantastic. And um yeah, it kind of gave me a whole new sense of like how to be myself around
Mhm.
people and have it be kind of like it was a different environment. Like I was able to be
Yeah.
calm and chill and not
Yeah.
be in high heels and a jacket all day or something,
Right, right.
Ugh,
Yeah, it's so important to find something that you like
yeah.
and that, your skills set is in that area, just to try to keep, it as like easy and less anxiety inducing as
Yes.
possible.
Isn't that the truth?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, just having to go into an office and stuff, I was so anxious. Oh, and another thing you said, like challenging your brain, that's another great thing, because the second I would get bored at a job, that's when it would start like heading downhill
Yeah.
fast. I needed something to be a challenge. I love to be challenged. And when it was boring or I had downtime and it was too easy, I would start to get anxious
Mm.
because I'd have nothing to be doing or whatever. And then I'd be looking at a clock, ticking down the time of when I was going to get to leave. And then I would start getting depressed. And it was like a
Yeah.
very bad, vicious cycle.
Yes.
So
It's
that's
so
another thing. It's like, make sure you're
true.
doing something that obviously that you like and that you have skill set for. And that's challenging so that you don't get bored,
Yeah.
because that can just cause, problems, at least for me. And it sounds like for you too.
Definitely. And I
Mm.
love that I can do like this show on
Mhm.
on my own schedule and
Yeah,
out of my home. And it
yeah.
makes it so much nicer. And sometimes we have a little visitor or so. Doesn't like look like we're gonna get one today. So and that's okay too. And it was so great at the beginning of my show when we first started, it was like at first I was afraid for like if my son came in, and
Yeah.
was
Uh-huh.
asking all of his funny questions and
Uh-huh.
he's very academic and very
Uh-huh.
intellectual. So
Uh-huh.
he's 12 going on college professor and he
Oh,
will tell you that he studies over 109 languages.
oh my
Yes,
gosh.
he was when he was 3. When he was 1, he started reading. I got pregnant at 33, so I was older and I
Uh-huh.
really was into early childhood education a lot.
Uh-huh.
And so I bought this program called the Your Baby Could Read program.
Okay.
And they used to show like ads and commercials for it years ago, but
Okay.
I bought this system and would just as a 1-month-old baby sat him in front of the DVD, would show him these DVDs and flashcards and things. And then at 1 years old, we recognized that he was reading the words, that his
Oh my
eyes were
God.
tracking. I'm overachiever bad. It rubbed off into parenting, unfortunately. But
That's
yeah.
insane.
And then at
Wow.
2, he started writing. And
Oh my
so he
gosh.
wasn't verbal yet. He wasn't verbal until he was almost 4. So
Uh-huh.
from 2 to 4, we communicated in in writing
Uh-huh.
and in lists and kind of charts and things like that. And then when
Amazing.
he was 3, he recreated like a cursive and block letter design that my mom had worn on a shirt. It said like Missoula, Montana. And
Okay.
he recreated it in like a 3-year-old doing cursive
Wow.
and block letters, like not even
Wow.
heard of, right?
So
And that's when
impressive.
I was like, oh my gosh, he has a photographic memory. Like this is what we're
Yes.
working with here.
Yes.
And so I was kind of like exploity, and I was just like, oh, whoa, gosh, look, now we can learn geography, and I'll teach you anatomy, I'll teach you math and science and English. And I
I
got
love
all of these DVDs, all of these educational stuff, and I
it.
just put him on a fast track to learning
Uh-huh.
because that's what
Oh,
he
I love
loves,
it.
and he just
Oh
like
my gosh.
absorbs all this information.
Uh-huh.
And if you knew your child had a photographic memory, would you want to give them, sit them in front of like cartoons, or do you want to give them a geometry book
Yeah.
or things like that? And so that's what I was just filling him with, all of this education.
Wow.
Now is self-taught. Now I don't even know that I could get on the level that he's at to be
Oh,
able to teach him
def-
anything.
definitely would not me. Oh no, no. That's so amazing.
It's
So
been a
impressive.
really incredible journey. I'll tell you that. The languages started at about 5 years old. He really was
Oh my
interested
gosh.
in learning languages. So he spoke maybe 5 languages by the age of 7.
I'm
Um,
so jealous. I'm trying to learn Italian. I
he
wish I
knows
could
Italian.
borrow his
He knows
brain.
Italian. Yep. Well, we wish he would do a lot of things like create an NFT and make us billions on the
Yeah.
dot. Like he's just the cutest thing. But it's so incredible because just like with all of that amazing things, he also has ADHD and global developmental delays, which really are seen in his dressing himself. Self
Mhm.
hygiene is really
Mhm.
tough. Um, and like I said, he is verbal, but
Mhm.
being verbal and being able to communicate correctly with people, or what they deem correctly, I should say.
Yeah.
That was, I don't mean to be inconsiderate, but he has a harder time with that. And
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of times that he'll speak in he likes to change vocabulary. So if I
Okay.
tell him to go sit down in a chair, he'll say, should I go sit in a chi? And I say, oh, go sit in the chair. A chair is called a chi. And then he tries to like change things so that he doesn't have
Okay.
to comply. Basically,
Okay.
I think that's his motivation. I'm still trying to
Okay.
learn what his motivation is, but
Okay.
but that's kind of where he struggles, is really like how to correctly communicate with
Mhm.
other peers or other adults, that
Mhm.
isn't in this puzzle
Yeah.
language.
Yes. Yes.
It's
I get it.
fascinating.
Not at his age, but I didn't talk till I think it was like about 3.
Yeah.
And it was in my own language. Who knows what
Yeah.
language it was? Um,
Yes.
and my mom didn't realize it until her mom, my grandma, said, like, you speak 2 languages, right? Because nobody else could understand what I was trying to communicate, but my
Yeah.
mom could. And so yeah, so I had to go to speech therapy when before going into kindergarten because I
Okay.
just still wasn't talking properly.
Yeah.
So I can kind of understand the language thing because I think I did it, but at a younger age.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that we're just amazed. We're amazed every day at the level of um more, I guess, intentions that are behind his communication. Because I think that
Yeah.
that's kind of a really um interesting transition to see when your child is in kind of their own world and doing, his own interests, and he doesn't like to talk about anything but his own interests.
Yeah.
And then he comes in and he's like, "Hi, mom. I love you."
Oh wow.
What?
That's
Like, that's
amazing.
fantastic. That's so
Yeah.
outside of your comfortable zone that you're
Yeah.
used to, he wants to talk about the history of emojis right now.
Oh
And
wow.
in Japanese, everything's in Japanese and everything's an emoji. So they
Oh
go
my
hand in
gosh.
hand.
Wow. That's insane. That's
If
so
you ever need to
amazing.
know the history of emojis,
But
you
no,
know where to
that's
go.
really great about
Yeah.
that he could come and like say I love you and stuff, because I didn't say out loud I love you to anybody, including my parents, until I was 18. I have a
Wow,
really
Olivia.
hard time expressing emotions and
Yeah.
stuff. So yes, the fact
Great
that he can do
to
that is
tell
great.
people. That's a really great thing to talk about too, because there another episode that I had done with Zara Astra, she's actually going to be a professor at Arizona State for a female divergent course.
Oh,
For
cool.
yeah, it's incredible.
That's where
And
my fiance went.
maybe they would know each other or something. That would be really neat.
Wow.
She is says kind of the same thing in her story about how, she just never felt like she could share the same emotions that she saw
Mhm.
others share around her. And
Yeah.
that she felt bad, like she was cold or,
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
not, yeah, not being able to make those types of different things. But I see that in my daughter too. I see where I'm like a highly sensitive person. She's not,
Yes.
she's
Yeah.
much more withdrawn. In fact,
Yeah.
you're going to love this. We were at the grocery store once and she was maybe 3 years younger. So maybe like 6 or 7.
Okay.
And we were at the grocery store. We saw some school teachers and they said, "Oh, Sarah, we'd love for you to read one of your children's books in our classroom."
Uh-huh.
And I was just like, "Oh my gosh, that would be so special." And I'm crying
Yeah.
in the grocery store. And we walked away and she just like elbows me and she just says, "Keep it together. You can cry at home." She's dead. Oh my gosh. I was just like, "Oh," now
Oh
I
my
see it. Like she's
gosh.
just in check. Like, you
Oh
watch
my
yourself,
gosh.
lady.
Oh,
Okay.
that's so funny.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever had quite the situation with my mom, but definitely something I probably would have done or thought internally, because
Yeah.
I'm I'm the same way. I'm very unemotional, and it's like it can be really frustrating, like you were saying, because it's like I want to like be able to show those emotions and convey those emotions, but I just can't. And so it's like and I know so many people on the spectrum are super highly sensitive and empathetic, but I definitely struggle in that area with
Yeah.
empathy and stuff, and just yeah, relating to people emotionally. Like takes, I don't really cry, just stuff like that. And it's like I always just kind of equated it to, I was a tomboy growing up and I played football and I like to hang out with the guys, so it's just like,
Mm.
oh yeah, I'm just like a tough like
Yeah.
girl or whatever. But obviously it's much more it's much more than just that. I'm sure that didn't help, but it's definitely much more than that. But yeah, just like knowing that there's other ways to express it. Like there's nothing wrong with like writing it down. Like I can write like nice notes or stuff that I can't say out
Yes.
loud, and just knowing other that there's other ways to express your love. Like I love giving gifts and making people things, and things like
That's
that,
great.
where it's not quite the traditional like hug, because I don't like being touched or talking, but I'll bake you some cookies or make you something that I think you'll really like, and that's
Yeah.
kind of how I
I
convey
love
my
that.
love and feelings.
I think that that's so fantastic. And I want to talk about your relationship, if that's okay,
Yeah, of course.
and just whatever you're comfortable with, but how that looks and, dating and then finding someone who just really accepts you
Yeah.
for, and then is he also on the spectrum by
No,
chance?
he's
Okay.
not. So we're pretty opposites. And it's funny because like I know a lot of people on the spectrum really love dating other people on the spectrum, but I personally don't think that I could date another person on the spectrum, because like I'm a pain and like I can barely deal with myself. I don't know how I could deal with somebody like just like me.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd have the ability to do that. But so I met Alex at the NFL Network, which
Okay.
is where so I didn't go to college. I went straight to the NFL after high school, and
Wow.
Yes. So yeah, that's another thing that I'm really passionate about is you don't need to go to college to be successful because
Yeah.
it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
I absolutely love learning, just like your son. I love, love, love learning new things, but not in a classroom setting. And I think it's sad that society makes it seem like you're going to fail if you don't go to a traditional school, because there's so many different ways to get your education. And like I got
Absolutely.
my education through internships because I love and learn by doing. And
Yes.
so that's how I got all my
I
education
love
to,
that.
yes, to get my job at the NFL Network.
Who did you work? Did you work with a team?
Yeah, I worked with, no, I not like a football team. I worked just at their, so it was like their media place. So they had like, so I
Okay.
was a
Yeah.
producer editor with them and helped
Oh, that's
produce their
amazing.
fantasy football show. And I thought that was my dream job. And I turned out that I hated it because, as I mentioned, it was like very boring and it was just a
Wow.
bad cycle. Yes. But the one good thing that came out of that is that I met my now fiance.
Yeah.
We've been dating for about 7.5 years, and we just got
Wow.
engaged a month
Oh,
ago, almost the day.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Yay.
But yeah, like growing up, I never thought I was gonna really have a relationship. I never thought I was gonna get married because I just knew myself where I couldn't express love. I didn't even know if like I could love, like really. I didn't know that. And I didn't like being touched, and I couldn't stand people for more than a certain amount of time. So I just didn't know how that was gonna work. And then I met Alex and everything changed. So there's definitely somebody for you out there, even
I
if you
love
think that
that.
like, yeah, you're not normal and you're not
Yeah.
capable of having a normal relationship, but I promise you, like, your person's out there. Because it wasn't until I met Alex that I was able to start saying I love you out loud. And
Oh.
I don't know what it was about him, but he's like never annoyed me. We've been living together since I think like only 6 months into the relationship, and like I can be with him all day long and it's fine.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I just knew that he's a very special person for those
Oh,
reasons,
I love
because you
that.
don't get annoyed with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, the relationship definitely comes with compromise on both of our ends. Unfortunately, more on his end,
Mm.
for him, just because I have a harder time doing things, and he's so like go with the flow, like so laid back. Like I said, the opposite of me. I'm like very high strung, and I can't handle change or anything. And so he was like very, when I met him, like very touchy feely, like he loved to cuddle, and wasn't very emotional, and I just wasn't like that. And so yeah, unfortunately, he had to give up some of that because I just couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
But I've gotten better with it, and now we can cuddle. Sometimes it's like, no, don't
Yeah.
touch me, and you have to be able to like convey that to the
Yeah.
person.
100%.
Like it's not happening right now. Like I
Yeah.
don't want to be touched, like even on the arm. Like I just
Exactly.
do it. Yes, you get it.
Yes.
But there are times that it's okay with me, and I've gotten better at that. But just like some things that I think would come naturally to like other people in a relationship is hard for me. Like I'll forget to like give them a kiss or a hug or something, because it's just not something that I enjoy, and I just forget about it. And so I have to remind myself to do that. Another thing is like asking how his day was and asking about his interests, because autistic people, kind of like you were saying about your son, talking about his special interests. And I'm no different, and we can come off as narcissistic sometimes, not because we are, but just because it just doesn't come natural to us to be like asking about other people's things and what they're interested in. So I
Yeah.
have to really like remind myself to do that with him. Thankfully, like we like most of the same things.
Yeah.
We love sports. He's like a big superhero nerd. And at
Oh.
first, when we were first dating, I'd never seen a superhero movie, and I totally made fun of him. But he turned me into a superhero nerd as well.
Yay.
So yeah, so we have that in common. So we really have so much in common, which I think is vital, because if we didn't, I'm sure it wouldn't work because of how unflexible I am, and how just it's hard for me to talk about things that I'm not interested in. It's hard to hold a conversation. So thankfully we like the same things.
I love that.
But yeah, so that's my rambling of our
I love
our
it. No, it's
relationship.
fantastic. And I met my husband. It's so funny you said that too about the NFL, because I really wanted to go work for the 49ers as a
Oh,
massage
cool.
therapist. I
Oh,
wanted to be a massage therapist for the
that would've been
49ers
so
so
cool.
bad. But I did become the massage therapist for the Utah Jazz. So I just picked another
Amazing.
sport.
Wow,
and now
that's
after
so
that, I'm
cool.
like, oh, thank heavens. Like,
That's
these
so
guys'
cool.
legs are, long, but they wouldn't be as big as those other guys would have been. And I'm 5'2",
Oh my gosh, their legs as tall as you, probably.
Exactly. So it was really great. And at the time I wasn't a basketball fan. So for me, it was a perfect job, because I didn't have like, it's a fan. I'm a fan.
Yeah,
I
right.
was just like, whatever, dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
your leg. Yeah, give me
Yeah.
your leg, whatever. So it made it just really fun. And I'm just so
That's
glad
so
that I
cool.
like accomplished that, that I
Yeah.
had this dream to work for a sports team, and I made it happen. So
Yeah, that's so true, because like I had to remind myself that about the NFL, because I ended up quitting because I just hated it so much after just one season of being there. And it's like I would even now I have to remind myself that that's not like a failure. Like you accomplished your dream job at 18 years old. Like you did it, and you just moved on to new dreams and stuff. So it's like I still check that off. It just it happened to be something that turns out that I don't like, but that's okay. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. And that's seriously so cool you got to do that.
Oh yeah, it's a lot. It's really neat. And I'm so grateful for the opportunities that I've been able to create for myself. And with that same thing, like just not being afraid, I'm kind of I think before I had kids, I was more of a risk taker, obviously, than after, because I have to think of other people's lives now and things like that. But there's always that in me that I was just like, I want to try this. I want to try this. I want to try this. I want to try, and I look at my parents who were an Air Force pilot and a general. My dad was a general. And of course, he spent 40 years in the Air Force. My mom was a nurse. She spent 40 years being a nurse, doing the same thing. And I am just like, could you add another job to my resume, please? Like I can't do enough. I can't. I gotta have like all the hands in all the cookie jars.
Yes.
I can't hand just one cookie jar.
No, I can't do just like one thing, because I get burned out really easily on it. And it's like I always dive into whatever I'm doing, like 110%. But then it's usually short-lived and I want to move on to something else.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I'm very similar. Like, I don't know how people do the same thing all their life.
I know.
It's like, I do kind of wish I could do that, because it seems like maybe easier to do that. Yes. But I can't. So I'm ready to move on to new things. So
got to give yourself grace, huh?
Yeah, I totally get that. And just, not viewing it as a negative that I've burned out on whatever I'm doing. Just view it as like, okay, it's time to do something new. And been there, done that. It's time for something else.
Oh, I love that. Well, unfortunately, before we go, I would just spend the whole afternoon on here with you if I could. I'll tell you, but I really want to know where people can go to find the cookie dough and all of that stuff. Any social medias you want to share, anything like that?
Yes, so you can find the cookie dough at unbakedbar.com, and please go check out my YouTube channel. It's just under my name, Olivia Hops, and I make videos about being on the spectrum and just getting diagnosed late. And then a new thing I'm offering is coaching. to try to
great.
help, other autistic adults or parents of
Yeah.
autistic kids, just through my experiences. So you can go check that out on oliviahops.org.
Perfect.
And there as well, you can find, I really want to help other autistic adults be, entrepreneurs, because it seems
Yeah.
like we really, like you were saying, we have that spirit and it's so hard for us to have normal jobs. So I also offer courses on that website,
Great.
oliviahops.org, on how to start your very own online edible cookie dough business.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, and it
Fantastic.
can be tinkered to be any online business, but
Yeah.
it's a bunch of knowledge from my 7 years of experience on how you can start your own successful online business, so that you can hopefully live an easier and less stressful life being your own boss.
Absolutely. Oh, I just love that. I'm so glad that we were able to connect
Oh yes,
and
me
make this
too.
work, and I look forward to staying
Oh
in
yeah.
touch with
Oh,
you and just
absolutely.
catching up in the future. Thank you
Yes,
so much for your
absolutely.
time today. It was just such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Yes, it
you.
was so much fun. Thank you.
Yay.
The SG Child Show, produced by SG Childs LLC. Thanks to all my viewers and listeners for your continued love and support. And thank you to the guests of the SG Child Show. It's been an honor to have you on the show. Thank you to everyone who continues to support me. Go to my social media and let's build this community together through kindness, compassion, and education for others.